much.
All right. In every nation, in any country, we know that there are two basic things driving the economy of every country or nation, and that is the monetary policy and the fiscal policies. See, when a government gets these two factors right, that means the economy will blossom. So, but before Tinubu came to power, he was bold enough to tell Nigerians that he would take tough economic decisions that would, in the short run, make Nigeria to suffer or to go through hard times. But in the long run, Nigeria will enjoy an economic Eldorado. So, but I want to hear from your own perspective regarding Tinubu's economic policies and then its correlation with the current food crisis we are having.
Well, this is a very broad subject, and we need to first establish the background. And the background I'm talking about, before we start talking about the economic policies, is this background of lawlessness, emphasis, lawlessness, recklessness, corruption, and incompetence. We will not understand the circumstances we are in if we don't properly situate them in this background that I have mentioned. The two principal anchors of the regime's economic policy so far are: one, the removal of subsidy; two, that is subsidy on PMS, what we call petrol; two, the floating of the naira, if I want to use those terms. In other words, allowing the market to determine the value of the naira. You must understand that these two policies were reckless. It's not my opinion, because you talked about what is my opinion. It's not about my opinion. It's about what are the facts. The policy on removal of subsidy was made on the day of inauguration. As at that time, he didn't have an economic management team in place. So you need to understand that. It was clearly reckless, and the results have justified it. It was also incompetent, and it was also unlawful. And that's why I talked about lawlessness, because the Appropriation Act for 2023 had allowed subsidy to continue till the end of June. But you came on the day of inauguration and you said subsidy is gone. That has very dangerous and destructive effects. First, the shock to the market, the panic of stakeholders, the impact on prices, because energy and transportation are fundamental to economic productivity. If you don't understand that, just use the reference of the US, that is the world's largest economy, and consume 25% of the world's energy, because you don't produce without energy. Look at the definition of energy. Energy is the capacity to do work. Work is productivity. You're not able to produce without energy. So energy and transportation are fundamental to economic productivity. And the removal of subsidy directly impacted on both energy, when you consider that you and I, right now talking to you here, I'm running generators. So that's the energy we're talking about. Now, you understand that the removal of subsidy impacted on the two fundamentals of economic productivity, which are both energy and transportation, movement of goods and services. You hear some of our Nigerian people say, what does dollar price have to do with Gary? Dollar exchange rate have to do with the price of Gary? That is silly. The cassava farmer transports himself to the farm. The cassava farmer transports his products. The trader that sells the Gary transports herself and her products. So, if you are importing your PMS, that's dollar-based. So you will now understand the impact of dollar on Gary, because the PMS, the spare parts, the tire of the vehicle, the maintenance and operation costs of the vehicle are all dollar-based, because it is an import-dependent economy. Now, you also went ahead. Let's emphasize the recklessness. In Tinubu's INEC form, he filled primary school nil. Nil, primary school, he doesn't have basic education. He filled secondary school nil. That is in his INEC form, that is in the public domain, nil. So you are dealing with, at best, a semi-illiterate, at best. And this is the same person who, without the advice of an economic management team, told you subsidy is gone, because he does not understand the fundamentals of policy making. Now, let's make it simpler. If Nigeria is going to play in the Olympics, football, and you take myself and Showore and some of us who have been presidential candidates in the past and put in the Super Eagles, do you expect us to win? No. Why do we do it in politics? Why do we do it in politics? It is because we have become very dysfunctional. If you start putting people like Victor Osimhen in Super Eagles, then you can expect to win. If you start putting me, then you want to lose. In other words, you put your most talented and best team forward. Tinubu represents the worst team that Nigeria can produce. And I'm surprised that the media is concerned about what is happening. This is expected, this was predicted. Now, that is the background I wanted to establish. Let us now go to answer your question. Specifically, food prices will necessarily and definitely continue to go up until we take the right actions. Why? Demand and supply, my brother. It is that simple. Demand and supply. We want food. Where do we get it from? We either produce it or we import it. Import with which dollar? With which dollar? Produce in which farm? The farmers have been killed and the government pretended nothing was going on. The remaining farmers have been displaced. There are no farms. And yet, editors are analyzing why food prices are going up. So you see how the level or the poor and weak educational system has even affected the media, where they don't understand the fundamentals. The Gary you want to eat, where was the cassava farm? Who is farming? You farm, herdsmen either destroy it, or they take over the place, or they extort taxes from you, and then you expect to eat. What are you going to eat? So these things are simple and clear, but maybe because of political correctness, the media continues to repeat the same questions over and over when the answers are glaring clear as black and white. That is the fundamental. The farmers are in IDP camps, the ones that have not been killed. So in reality, there's no farming going on. So the answer to your question is that is the direct impact on food production and food prices.
Well, you talked about President Tinubu's removal of oil subsidy, fuel subsidy. But you know that prior to his inauguration, even the election we had in 2023, virtually the major candidates of the election pledged to remove the oil subsidy. So, but if I got your point, you are saying that the implementation of that action was reckless and farcical. Is that what you are saying? Then, well, if that's what you are saying, what would you do differently? What would you do differently to ensure
I'm happy you
averted this? Please speak on.
I'm happy that you asked this question, because that will bring clarity to the matter. And we have addressed this question 1,000 times. I ran for president in 2015. So you should have known the answers. We gave you the answers, and our answers are not different from even the answers of the ruling party. They are not different from the answers of NLC. They are not different from the answers of Pengassan. They are not different from the answers of TUC. So everybody knows the answers. Why do you import what you produce? You are a major crude oil producing country. You have 4 refineries and you are importing refined products. What is wrong with you? So what answer do you expect me to give you? You burn your house. You say, why don't I have a house to live in? That's exactly the question you have asked me. That's number one. Number two, let's not go about major candidates, because that will become partisan. I was a candidate in 2015 and we had an answer. And let me repeat that simple answer, one sentence. You revamp the refineries and you build new ones. In that way, you don't only reduce the price of fuel, you also increase government revenue because of the value addition. So instead of selling raw crude oil, there is a market in our neighborhood here in the West Coast where you can sell refined products. Why did we not exploit it? Because we are lazy, unproductive, ignorant, arrogant, mediocre, and very, very, very obstinate in our mediocrity. Compare yourself with South Africa. South Africa has no crude oil, but they have refineries. They import crude oil and they refine. You have crude oil, you have refineries. You are importing petroleum products. What is wrong with you? You put mediocres in government, you expect performance, and you're asking me the answer. You know the answer. Thank you.
All right, let's move a bit to the monetary policy of President Tinubu. You know, he promised to reduce the MPA, the monetary policy rate, MPR, I mean to say, but he did not do that. Rather, people are purchasing these monies at a high interest rate. So how do you think the Tinubu's monetary policy has affected the food inflation we are currently experiencing? How do you think Tinubu's monetary policy?
Well, monetary policy is simple. Monetary policy indicates the direction of the interest rate. Now, if interest rate is high, and assume that the business I do is transportation, and I borrow from the bank at a high rate, my rate is part of my cost. So that affects the inflation because my prices will go higher. If it is cassava or garri that I'm transporting, then the prices are transferred. So what are we saying? What we are saying is that if you have a high monetary policy rate, which is just grammar for high interest rate, then the cost of borrowing becomes too high. And then don't forget that if I'm not able to service the loan and it goes bad, my business can collapse. Don't forget that. So it has multiple effects. But this idea of failing on the fundamentals and running to the technicalities is in itself incompetent. The idea of failing on the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals of economics? It's productivity, my brother. If you like, go and be adjusting monetary policy rates. If there is no yam in the country, nobody will see yam to eat. Produce yam before you start adjusting monetary policy rates. Thank you.
The President Tinubu so far has implemented some measures to curb food inflation. For example,
Sorry, please. Did you call him president? Is he president?
Of course, he's the president of Nigeria currently.
Okay, let's respect that as your opinion. Go ahead.
All right. He has pledged to implement, although we have not seen the full implementation now. He has put into some measures to curb the food inflation, one of which was the recent distribution of about 20 trucks of rice to each state of the Federation. And then introduction of the compressed natural gas, which is meant to reduce the price of the high fares of transportation. So what do you think? Do you think these measures are genuine and will eventually curb the food inflation we are having?
Well, that's what I'm talking about, deceit and recklessness. First, the food inflation was aggravated by government going to the same market to purchase the same food items it distributed on a large scale. That raised prices for you and I, in case you don't know that. Did Tinubu bring the food items from his farm? Does he have any farm? They use government money to go to the same market where you and I buy to purchase these items. That is silly. That is silly. Common sense tells you, teach me how to fish. Don't give me fish. Instead of having pragmatic programs for security and agricultural productivity, you went to the same market that is constrained to go and purchase the few items left there with government money. Then you say you are distributing them. Is that sustainable? Please. We can't continue like this. We make it look like Africans have an inferior brain. And I was trained all over the world. It is not true. It is the leaders in Africa who are imposed that have an inferior brain. You also call President Tinubu president. Is he president? How do you become president in a democracy? You need me to tell you that this is a civilian coup and that he's running a civilian dictatorship? Did he win the election? Did INEC publish authentic results? Excuse me. This is part of the problem. Thank you.
Well, he said in the short run, because people are hungry. People are hungry. So
it is the same food in the market that the hungry people were supposed to buy that he went to purchase with government funds. This is silly. I took 10,000 from your right pocket. I put it back in your left pocket. And you are saying in the short term. What is short term? My friend, if you don't have yam, you don't have yam. If you don't have gari, you don't have gari. If you go and steal it, you are a thief. These things are simple. You guys overcomplicate every simple thing. He went to the same market. It's the same supply. He purchased out of it using government funds. And by the time you add the corruption index of his government on the purchase, then you see that it is a loss to the country. It would have been better he left it in the market and we go there to buy it ourselves.
Yes, I understand what you are saying. Even some critics are saying that the trucks of rice are barely enough, because when you do the mathematics there, 20 trucks of rice, about 1,200 bags of rice by 20. What you say, that is 24,000. And when you add it up to 37 states, that is about 900,000 approximate. So, and Nigeria is currently having about over 100 million people in poverty. So that is not sustainable at all. But whatever happens, what do you think about the CNG powered vehicles? Because currently the president is doing something about it, and he promises that before the end of 2024, that CNG vehicle will be distributed across Nigeria to ease transportation for Nigerians. Engineer Onovo, are you still there? All right, we are still discussing the economic policies of the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and his impact specifically on the food inflation. Engineer Onovo. Since we have lost him. Yeah, while we wait for him, you have we're still waiting for our guests to log back. I did not get unable to log back, yes. I don't know what is happening. All right, Engineer Novo, you are back. Can you hear me? All right. I think there was a truncation there, but thank God you are back. All right. Now, you should have something good to say about the measures already taken by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu to mitigate the current food crisis. So what do you think? What positive things do you think this present administration has done? If you can hear me, I asked what positive measures do you think the President Tinubu has instituted to curb or mitigate the present hunger in the country? I talked about CNG buses earlier, which is ongoing. And before 2024 ends, the president promised that CNG powered vehicles will be distributed across the country. So don't you think that will help to reduce the food inflation?
Well, the first thing is that CNG is a long-term plan. This is also reckless, and you cannot do everything in an emergency. Common sense tells you that those who fail to plan to fail. Now, the emergency with which the CNG policy is being implemented will compromise your effectiveness. So that's a given, because in every circumstance, something gives. So in this case, the CNG is a good idea. But that's not an idea you expect to have immediate effect. Because how many buses are they bringing? Now, you will need to go and change your own vehicle, convert it to a CNG vehicle. So you have to provide the funds, you yourself. To change my own, I have to provide the funds. And you're talking about food inflation. You haven't asked me whether I've eaten before I go and start paying for conversion. So this thing is something that is long-term and will need time to gestate. But is CNG a good idea? Yes. Is it being done rightly? No. Because those who fail to plan to fail. These planless emergencies are all avoidable. But in the circumstances of corruption and incompetence, this is what you're going to get. Thank you.
Now, what about the president's initiative to remove tariffs on certain imported goods and staples like rice and what do you think about that?
You see, you don't make policies by looking only at what you're going to benefit. You also look at what you're going to lose. The idea of spot policies, unplanned policies, policy somersaults, contradictory policies will only move you to a very high level of inefficiency and ineffectiveness. You want to remove tariffs on imported products, imported food products, good. You remove tariff, that mitigates the cost of imported foods, agreed. What does that do to your local food production? What does that do to the value of your naira? So we are looking for answers where there are no answers. We are complicating very simple things. You don't have a house, you need a house. Instead of building houses, you start junketeering all over the world, attending housing conferences till you exhaust the budget. That's irresponsible. We don't have food. Nigeria is one of the most blessed, or have one of the most fertile agricultural lands in the whole world. You are lazy here, you're not producing food. Then you go to Israel that is in a desert to go and import food. And you have not asked, what is wrong with me? Am I inferior? Am I lazy? Am I corrupt? Why can't I produce food? So these stopgap measures have become the pattern and the norm for this government. Even their student loan was stopgap. Run off in the wrong direction, come back, review after you fail, start again. You think time waits for you? I mean, Professor Niyo Shundare captured it very well when he said, incompetence weds corruption. And it's only the media that is expecting magic in a situation where incompetence has got married to corruption. It's only the media. So continue to expect magic. You expected it for 8 years of Buhari. Your situation got worse. Buhari left us, Dr. Jonathan left us with a debt of 12 trillion. Buhari left us, that was 2015. Buhari left us in 2023 with a debt of 77 trillion. Right now, it's over 121 trillion. You are expecting magic. Wait until you're sold into slavery. Continue, wait, and be asking me these questions that you know the answers to.
Engineer Onovo, Nigeria is currently still dependent on petrol, fuel. So what would you do to revitalize the agricultural sector? If you were president, what would you do to revitalize, to bring up, to make agriculture the center of Nigeria's GDP?
Don't forget that I ran for president. So I've answered these questions 1,000 times. I ran in 2015. It was in 2015 that I ran for president. That's 9 years ago. And all these questions were answered. And everybody knows the answers. First, insecurity is the biggest factor today. We need to secure the farms so that farmers can go back. That's number one. Number two, we need to improve the level of mechanization in our farming. That's simple. What has the Tinubu regime done? Ad hoc regime is what I call them. They have now brought GMO to cause more destruction. GMO is very, very dangerous. GMO destroys health. GMO destroys the environment. GMO destroys the soil. GMO destroys the diversity, other plants. GMO kills farm animals. GMO kills pollinators. GMO seeds are seeds of death. And in the planlessness and ad hoc, and they are banned in many countries all over the world. In Russia, GMOs are classified as terrorism. But that is what Tinubu brought. And the media is going to keep quiet until people die in mass. Then they will call me and ask, why are people dying in mass? Common sense, prevention is better than cure. So what to do is very simple. It's not complicated. Improve security so that farmers can go back to farm. Improve mechanization so that we can increase the agricultural work done. Mitigate losses with infrastructural development, because farm products that are produced in distant farms, the cost of bringing them to the market is too high, so they rot away. So these are basic, simple things that if you were not mediocre and corrupt and incompetent and unreasonable and self-destructive, these situations will not arise. The questions will not even arise. Thank you.
You know, insecurity is a major problem in the country. Of course, we know that. And it is impacting also directly on the high food production, because if farmers do not go to farms, we will not have any production of food. But currently now, people are hungry. What immediate strategies do you suggest that the President Tinubu will do to mitigate or address the current hunger? Of course, we have seen what he is doing already, but what additional things would you suggest he does?
Well, you see what he's doing. I don't see what he's doing. I see he's complicating the problems. So that is your business. From my point of view, you cannot deliberately work yourself into an emergency and then start looking for solutions. Common sense tells you that those who fail to plan to fail. Common sense tells you that prevention is better than cure. If you have no common sense, you cannot be effective. So we cannot continue to tolerate a government that is incompetent, lawless, corrupt, and self-destructive. We cannot. So all these things you're looking for, you have the same mentality, palliative mentality as government. It doesn't work. Palliative is not sustainable. That's the same way you're borrowing money and wasting. When you started borrowing, we complain.
What is sustainable?
Yes, it's not sustainable.
Respond.
It's not sustainable. When you started borrowing money and we were complaining, you say there's nothing wrong with borrowing. America is owing. Now you are almost in a debt crisis. In fact, you're in a debt crisis. You can't pay your debt. You're borrowing to pay debt. So what kind of situation is that? We cannot continue thinking like this. That is why Chimamanda called us educated illiterates. We're not thinking like educated people. We are thinking in a very destructive way. And I'm not going to encourage that kind of thinking. I'm a leader. Right. I cannot encourage that kind of thinking.
So supposing you inherited the Buhari's administration, like what he left off, what specific things would you do? You have criticized all the policies of the President Tinubu. So what
you call policies, what you call policies are reckless conjectures. So even your choice of words are not acceptable to me. They are very reckless conjectures. And you can see the impact of the reckless conjectures, but you still call them policies. There's no way I can agree with you on that. Now, number one is that if Nigerians had the right mindset, we will not have encouraged the Buhari to do what he did and put us where he put us. But wherever you find yourself, the first thing is to do your assessments, make your plans, and move forward. But in this case, the ad hoc Tinubu regime is moving backward, and you are clapping, saying there are palliative measures. And your debts have gone from 77 to 1 something. When it gets to 400, you will also look for other palliative measures. If I inherited what Buhari did, left, the first thing is to let the country know that this is the exact situation, transparency, integrity. Then a plan on how to get out, not a plan on how to use 1 trillion to construct 47 kilometers of road. No. So you continue wasting productive resources. Where do you use 1 trillion to construct 47 kilometers of road? And you awarded the contract to your business partner. And the payment was not in the budget. So this complete lawlessness is what you want to mitigate, you, Emmanuel. You cannot just be reckless and expect that you're going to get excellent results. If you want to get excellent results, you have to act excellently. So the first thing is a proper assessment, which any candidate should have done, which we did in 2015 when we ran. And at the presidential debate, we were very clear about what we're going to do. And they were practical, they were verifiable. So looking at 2019, if we inherited what Buhari left, the first thing is that we will not continue the reckless and unpatriotic borrowing that ballooned the debt from 12 trillion to 77 trillion. We will not have continued it. Now, the Tinubu regime has continued it, and you're heading to 200. When it gets to 200, you, Emmanuel, will ask me, what will you do if you inherit 200? This is a mentality that is very destructive. So when I use the word destructive, some people say it's harsh, but that's the right word. So the first thing you do an assessment, which any presidential candidate that is what his claim should have done. Based on the assessment, you develop your plans. Now, Nigeria has capacity to recover from this. You can take that to the bank. According to the National Assembly estimates, we are losing $9 billion to illegal mining of gold alone. Then start counting other minerals. If those ones amount to another $9 billion, then you're talking about $18 billion a year that we can recover and start making progress from there. We are losing $4 billion a year from oil theft. Let me tell you, I'm a petroleum engineer of over 30 years in the industry. I joined the industry in 1989. You cannot steal crude if you are not above the law. And you and I are not above the law, so we know who's stealing our crude. So that 4 trillion, add it, you have $4 billion, add it, you have $20 billion a year. So the country can recover when we stop thinking the way you are thinking. You destroy. You now say, hey, Onovo, you say you're a presidential candidate. And we have destroyed it. How do we fix it? How you fix it? You rebuild it. You can't burn your house. You say, Onovo, you say you are smart. We have burned the house. How do we get another house? How you get another house? You start building another house. You demolish the one you have bought and you build another one. So, common sense decision making is cost-benefit analysis. Planning cannot be done by people who have no primary and secondary school. So you are creating impossibilities. You are telling me how to get a man out of hellfire. No. Avoid hell. Pray. Obey the commandments. Then you will not go to hell. Don't come and ask me, oh, the man is now in hell. Should you are Mr. Ovasabi. How do you bring them out of the hellfire? That's the kind of question you're asking. My brother, you want to succeed, you have to be clear about your vision and your purpose. You have to plan and you have to work hard. Recklessness and irresponsibility will not get you to succeed. Thank you.
Okay, your assessment of the current government is in retrospect. That's why you're talking about planning. What they should have planned, they failed to plan. But we are now talking about how to move the country forward. For example, yesterday we saw what happened at the House of Representatives, where the lawmakers agreed to sacrifice 50% of their salaries so that the executive could allocate that retention to the food, to curb food inflation. So what do you think that's a positive thing?
Well, I will say that is cosmetic, because if you go and check their legitimate salaries, I know you are confused because you don't know what they are earning versus what they are supposed to earn by constitution. But it's in the public domain. Go to the RMFAC, RAMFAC website, and check the compensation of public officers. The president of Nigeria, by law, does not earn up to $500,000 in a month, in case you don't know. In case you do not know, go and check it by law. Those guys are paying themselves nearly 20 million every month in the National Assembly. What they're supposed to earn is less than 3 million a year as salary. So they just deceived you.
Well, I don't think so, because it is in the public domain. A salary for a lawmaker in the House of Reps a month is 600,000 naira. Then when you talk about the allowance may be up to $1 million.
Well, what you have just done is impose your personal authority above that of RAMFAC, which is the constitutional authority. Go to the RAMFAC website and verify. So it's not your authority versus RAMFAC. RAMFAC has a website, so public domain is RAMFAC. That's the constitutional authority. Revenue Mobilization and Physical Allocation Committee, they have the compensation there. It is less than 3 million per year for a senator. When you reduce it, it's 200 and something thousand a month. So forget the rubbish allowances they give to themselves. That's fact. And they pay themselves, and we kept quiet. Don't forget that we even have a court judgment on the matter. Some political parties went to court, and I think it was just Ojuojuku that ruled that they are earning unlawful salary and they should refund it. But they are in power, so who's going to collect it from them? But we have a judgment against them. So when you say public domain is constitutional authority, RAMFAC, not you. People are throwing around figures they don't know. Go to the website, it's there. Everybody can access it. Even the president, his basic salary is not up to 600,000 a month. Go and check it.
All right, if there is. All right. What does the future hold for this country? Do you still believe that the country has bright hopes? What do you think?
It's very clear. The country, I have lived and worked in Europe, I've lived and worked in North America, so I can talk with global authority. And I can tell you that this country is positioned, and everybody outside Nigeria knows that the country is positioned to be the richest country in the world. Positioned. So there is hope for Nigeria, but that's if we do what is right. But as it is now, the level of damage done, in my personal opinion now, not fact, personal opinion, only a shock treatment will get us back from the abyss where we are accelerating into. Only a shock treatment. There is no cosmetic fine-tuning that will save Nigeria now. And my preferred shock treatment now is restructuring.
Restructuring, that's the final one. All right, thank you very much, Engineer Martin Onovo, the presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party in the 2023 general elections. I thank you for being present in this program. I hope we meet again next time.
Thank you very much.
All right.
So we are done.
I'm done, Mr. Calvin. Thank you for the hosting.
All right.